Hello there, it's Cassie, and welcome back to another ScrapbookPal.com video. Today I have a card for you using some of the latest release from Lawn Fawn. This is the Really High 5 stamp and die set, and so I'm excited to make a card with that. We're also going to be using the Stitched Balloon Frames dies. We're going to be working on a shaker, and so I thought this would just be perfect. I did grab into my stash. I found a circle nestabilities that I was able to cut down some acetate with, and it fits just perfectly inside one of those balloons for our shaker. And so I will show you how we're going to do that here in a bit. I have cut out of various cardstock that I have the balloons. I cut out 2 small ones and 1 big one. And I'm also going to be using this little confetti piece that comes with the Stitched Balloon Frames die. I'm going to use that on those various colors there, that darker pink, that turquoise, and that yellow, to make our confetti. And we're also going to be using this Lawn Fawn Chunky Glitter. I love that stuff. It's so cool, and it'll work really well in our shaker. I'm cutting down my card base, which is just some cardstock, some white cardstock that I had in my stash. I used my Score Buddy to score that at 4 1/4 inches to make this a side folding A2 size card. And now we're going to go ahead and start assembling our shaker. So there are the bits that I cut out, and I have some Nuvo Deluxe liquid glue. I decided to use this because I knew I was going to set my shaker off to the side to dry. Typically you might want to use a dry adhesive, but the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive works really well. And there I had cut out some circles from acetate, and they fit perfectly in there. Here is the Scrapbook Adhesives Crafty foam tape, and I had already cut this in half basically, so it's not quite as thick as it was before. So I cut it in half, and we're going to go ahead and pull off some of that release paper so that we can start manipulating this around the circle. I love this Crafty foam tape. It works perfectly for something like this. And this way I can just put that all around the circle, trim off the excess, and then I can stick that extra piece back with my Crafty foam tape. And now I have my shaker ready to go. We're going to go ahead and take some of those confetti bits, and we'll put those in there. Originally it was too many to put in there, so I'm going to grab just one of each of the pieces from each of the colors. And I do like how the confetti will cut out 3 triangles, 3 little swirlies, 3 squares. It's just perfect. And so it'll also cut out 3 little circles as well. So like I said, I'm just grabbing one of each of the elements from each of those colors because I don't want to fill my little balloon too much. And then I'm going to just take a couple scoops of the chunky glitter using my Nuvo spoon, and I'll put that in there as well. I'm going to grab the other piece of my acetate. This is the other circle that I cut out, and I'll just close up my shaker. And so now we're all ready to go. It's perfect. Ready to assemble and put on the front of a card. I have some Copic friendly cardstock that I'm putting into my mini MISTI, and I'm going to close the door of the MISTI and pick up all the stamps that I chose to ink up. I'm going to ink these up with some Memento Tuxedo black ink because, as I said, I do want to do some Copic coloring. And I'm going to stamp that a couple times just to make sure that I have a good crisp image. Memento Tuxedo black ink is a great ink for Copic coloring. So I'll show you all the colors up on the screen. We're going to start off with some R20 and R43. I'll color in my balloon with these. I wanted this balloon to match the outside balloons that I had already cut out, and so we have that blush and that Bougainvillaea, and then I'm going to come back in and lighten that up and then bring in the darker color one more time. We'll use the blush color on their ears and nose and also on the little bunny's belly. And then to color my bunny, I'm going to bring in E50 and E21. So that E50 is called Eggshell, and then the E21 is called Baby Skin Pink. I'm putting down a light wash of my first color, and then I'll bring in my E21 for my darker shade just to add a little bit of shadowing and shading. And I don't really have any rhyme or reason as to where I'm putting it. I'm just putting it where I think it looks nice. Then we're going to color our bear with some E99 and some E29. So I'll put down a base of my E99, which is called Baked Clay. I'm going to put that all over the bear, including his little tummy and his little tail. Don't want to forget his little tail. And then I'm going to come in with the E29, which is the Burnt Umber, and I'll put in my shading where I think that might look nice. Once again, no real rhyme or reason as to where. And then I'll bring in the E99 once again to soften that out. It's always funny how when I put down the darker shade, sometimes it just doesn't look right until I come in and blend it a little better. Then I'm going to bring in some Y35 and also some BG15 for my presents and my little hat. I'm not going to do any real shading or shadowing here. I'm just putting down some of that color just to bring in some of the colors that were in the confetti. Then I'm going to line up my matching dies, and I'm going to tack that down with some low tack tape, just making sure that I don't get the tape over the parts that I actually colored. Just in case that tape decides to tear any of the paper, it'll only tear what's outside of that. And I do apologize, I'm really close in. I was just in card making mode at this point, so I wasn't really paying attention to how zoomed in my camera still was. I'm going to take some of that Nuvo Deluxe liquid glue and tack down my balloons. So yes, these balloons were made for the stitch frame, and you could also do what I'm doing here and just put them down together. It really, I think I like the stitch part of the balloon. I know that Lawn Fawn now has another stitch balloon, but I thought these were cool because it kind of was both in a sense. Because it doesn't bother me that I'm just going to stick the inside down as well. I think it adds a little bit of extra texture to the balloons. And then I'm going to put down the back piece for my shaker. Put it down a little too low, so I'm going to pick it up and put it back down. And then I have enough foam tape exposed, so I'm, pardon my head, just going to pop my shaker piece right down to the front of my card base. And I love it. So here I'm kind of deciding where I want to put the pieces. I did put a little bit of glue on the back of my present. I'm going to make it so that my bear is holding the present. And then we're going to bring in my guillotine trimmer to trim off the excess of those balloons. I love having cards that have some stuff coming off the edges. It just gives this illusion of continuation beyond the edges of the card, which is really fun. And so it looks like I've got a lot going on outside of the upper left-hand corner of this card, which is fun. We're going to bring in the sentiment because we're going to do some stamping on the inside. We're bringing in Happy Birthday along with some VersaMark Claire Nocturne ink. I'm going to ink that up. I'll put down my balloon first because I kind of want to have an idea of where that's going to go. And then I'll stamp Happy Birthday. And then I'm going to use the Nuvo Deluxe liquid glue to adhere down my balloon. And also my little bunny. He's going to go at the very bottom here. And I'm going to glue down his hat as well. He's coming in for that Happy Birthday. And I've really been enjoying finishing up the insides of my cards lately. It's just a fun little extra touch. And then I'm going to bring in a Copic multi-liner. This is the 0.3. And I'm going to just draw the string from the balloon. And I also put some little swirlies on the top. And then we're going to move on to doing our sentiments for the outside. I grabbed 3 sentiments. I'm inking that up with some VersaMark ink. And I did use a anti-static powder bag over my black cardstock. I'm covering that with some white embossing powder. And then I'm going to heat set that until that is smooth and melted. And you'll know that it is done because it'll go from a matte finish to a shiny. And you just kind of need to hold it up in the light to make sure. I'll bring in my guillotine trimmer one more time to trim down my sentiment. And a little tidbit of information. So when you're cutting down your sentiments, at least this is how I do it, I like to line up the very top part or bottom part of my sentiment and do the trimming from there. I line it up right on that clear plate. It kind of holds the piece in place, and then you get a perfect cut pretty much every time. So I'm lining it up with that clear edge, and I'll trim off the excess, and I'll flip it around and do the exact same thing with the bottom of the sentiment and trim that down again, just making sure that I have it cut well. And then I'll put those pieces back into my trimmer, and I'll trim off the excess of the edges. Doing the same thing, just lining up both sides of the sentiment so that it's all cut perfectly. And that's, you know, one more reason I like this trimmer. It works out really nicely for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to finishing up the rest of our elements on the outside of the card. I'm going to use a little bit more of that Crafty foam tape on the back of my little bear, and I'm also going to do it on the back of just Yay. So I'll take the Nuvo Deluxe glue and I'll put down Flying By to Say, and I'll also put down It's Your Birthday, just using the glue. I'll peel off the release paper on Yay and pop that up on the side of the balloon. And then I'll peel off the release paper on my bear and put him down. He's kind of covering just a little bit of that black part of the sentiment, and then we're going to come in and draw in a line so that he is holding that balloon as well. And then we'll draw the lines for the other two balloons where we just add a little loopy where we would have our tie, and then a string coming down like they're just hanging there. I just think it's fun how cute that little bear looks compared to those other big balloons. And then that's going to finish off our shaker for the day. So if you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. We always try to have plenty of inspiration for you over here at scrapbookpal.com. So thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll see you very soon in the next video. Bye everybody.